PLM Workflow for Model Manager allows companies to graphically map critical business processes, bringing them under control through visibility, traceability and accountability. PLM Workflow is easily configured and deployed with no requirement for programming or customization. The example workflow we will create here is a simple engineering change order. Logged in as an administrator, we have a new admin option called Workflow. From here we can begin the creation of a new workflow. Begin by giving the workflow template a unique name and revision. Note that dynamic help is available, giving useful hints as you create your workflow. We select the packet or folder types that can be assigned to a workflow. Now that we have defined the initial properties of the workflow, we can start to lay out the graphical representation. Select Edit before we begin adding steps. A new dialog window opens so that we can define the properties of the first step. Again, begin with a task name and a description. We can add task instructions also. These will be used as a guide indicating what is expected at each step. This is really useful for new users who may not be used to a company's procedures. We now set a state for the packet at this step. Normal access controls are applied, allowing you to control access at each step of the workflow. Next, we determine who the folder owner will be. This could be a project team, a group of approvers, releasers, or designers, etc. As the packet is routed through the workflow, emails will be sent at each step to the new folder owners. In addition, we can set a rule that allows the user to notify other users or groups as the packet is sent forward. The administrator can also determine other users and groups that should be notified at the same time. The first step is now almost complete. This is now marked as the first step in the workflow. Additional steps are defined in the same way. As steps are added, they overlay the first step in the graphical preview. Position the steps as required using drag and drop. By default, Align to Grid is enabled, helping you lay out the workflow. Disabling this may help final positioning of objects. Once the steps are arranged, we can alter the appearance using the right-click Display Properties option. We can now select a shape from a palette of predefined shapes. The style that we have just applied to this step can be copied to other steps. Now that the basic layout is established, we can start defining the route through the steps or tasks. Right-click the first step and select the Connections option. We now choose to create a new route. Here we define the route properties, initially giving it a name and description. All information added at this stage helps to make the purpose clear for the user. 3 approvals are required at this stage, so we select the 3 approval steps and make them required rather than optional. This parallel route ensures that all 3 steps are visited before the packet can progress to the next step. We can now see the connections in the graphical preview. For simple single-step connections, we can use the Quick New Route option. From the approval gate, we need another parallel route. However, this time the steps are optional depending on whether the change order requires mechanical or electrical changes, or maybe even both. We're also going to create a route to the rejection step. We can do this with a quick new route. Note that the layout of the connecting lines can be changed. Using right-click mouse options and drag and drop, we can alter the position of the connecting lines. In this workflow, we created a rejection step. If a workflow is directed to a rejection node, all active tasks in the workflow are immediately cancelled. By editing the step properties, we can mark this step as a rejection node. Additional timeout rules can be applied to the workflow steps. These are edited from the task properties. Timeout rules allow for additional prompts or action if a task is not actioned within a preset period. Here we set a timeout rule that will send an email to the administrator if this task has not been actioned within a week. Note that external email addresses can be added to the notification list. More advanced timeout rules can also be applied, allowing re-notification if the task is still not actioned, or alternatively the workflow can be forwarded to another step in the workflow. The workflow appearance can be further enhanced by making more changes to the display properties. From here, different fonts can be selected. The step's border, shadow and background can be altered as required. Each adjustment is shown dynamically in the preview at the top of the dialog box. A gradient can be added to the background colour to lift the flat appearance that you get with a single colour. All these style changes can be stored to be used as the default style for new steps. Again, we copy the style and paste it to the other steps, giving a uniform appearance to the workflow. Now the alterations to the appearance of the task steps are complete, we can make similar changes to the connecting lines. A corporate logo or other images can be added to the workflow preview as required. In addition, highlight boxes can be helpful to group sections of a workflow together, and text can be added to give additional information to users. The workflow definition is now complete. We can now see our first workflow definition. Before making this workflow active, we should validate it to check for any errors, such as orphan nodes, etc. If the validation does fail, we're presented with a graphical indication of where the problems lie. In this case, the final node has not been connected to the workflow and is flagged as an unreachable or an orphan node. Edit the workflow to correct the error. Before releasing, we have the option to set the state to test run. The test run state allows the workflow to be checked. This allows you to check the workflow without having to log in as different users at each step. In addition, emails are not sent to the users or groups. Once all checks are complete, the workflow can be released ready for use. As business processes evolve, improvements may be found, or it may be that similar workflows are identified. In this situation, the original workflow can be up-issued to reflect these changes, or can be copied to form the basis of a new workflow. Here we import a workflow that has been created on a different system. If we look at the graphical preview of this workflow, we can see that complex business processes can be mapped into the system, giving users clear visual feedback about the process. Once a workflow grows to this size, an overview window can be used to pan around the graphical preview.